WNBA draft was yesterday. I think the league did pretty darn good.
It did amazing. Also, the ladies all looked fabulous in the outfits, most importantly, but they showed up and some really good things happened to a lot of excellent, deserving players.
That is really cool how that's happened on all drafts now, no matter what it is the players that are about to be drafted are dressed to the nines.
Well, and they get wined and dined throughout New York City. They went to the Empire State Building earlier in the day, so it was an overall amazing experience, and they deserve it because they have worked so hard to get to this point in time in their careers.
Yeah, we've got men's lacrosse coming up again, the coach of the #1 team in the country. We got baseball. We got a ton to get to, but we're going to stay with Megan since she's sitting next to me and talk.
Don't want to leave if that's okay.
About some women's hoops for our big story. And here's what it looked like. The players that were drafted from the Big Ten. Veronica Burton in the first round, 7th overall. Nia Clouden, the final pick of the first round. Naz Hillman went early on in the second round, and Allie Patberg from Indiana gets drafted as well. So that is 4 selections, the most for the Big Ten since 2018. Had you on yesterday on the show, and we were talking about players that could go first. I think I phrased it as, like, do you think Naz goes first? And you sort of, I don't know if you specifically said, but you sort of intimated, like, don't overlook Veronica Burton. She's really valuable at the next level.
I hesitated when you asked me, for sure. And it's interesting when you see the mock drafts that happen in the WNBA. It's a unique league because a lot of teams draft specific to what their needs are on a team. There's only 144 players in the WNBA. You have 12 roster spots. So anytime a team's going to go into their draft, they're going to say, okay, I need a point guard. Who's my best available point guard? Versus most times, who's the best available player, which is what you're used to seeing in drafts. So when Dallas came up, and I had the opportunity to speak to some Dallas GMs, and they had really liked Veronica Burton. They wanted to have a point guard. They liked that her basketball IQ was so high that she was dedicated to the defensive side of the ball. And ultimately, when her name got called, everyone was really excited. I mean, look, Veronica Burton is going to do really well in the WNBA, and she has a really good shot of making a roster spot because of how smart she is and can run a team. That's what WNBA GMs and coaches like. You can put her on the floor for a couple of minutes while the starting point guard rests, and she's not going to make any mistakes. She's going to be able to run the team and also commit to the defensive side of the ball. Once you get to the pros, defense is so important, and there's a lot of value in a player that can get it done not only on the offensive side of the ball, but also defensively.
And I feel like, and I mentioned this to you yesterday, like, it's easy to focus on her defensively because a 3-time player of the year in that category, but that's not all she is. That alone might be enough for her to make a roster and to show her immediate value, but she can score, absolutely.
We don't talk about her scoring ability, and she actually led Northwestern in scoring this year with nearly 18 points a game. That being said, it's her IQ that makes her such a special player. The way Veronica Burton understands the game, everything slows down for her. And in the pros, where the game and the pace is so fast and physical, Burton's the type of player that can handle any sort of pressure and can get teammates in positions to score.
Yeah, she is the 2nd highest draft pick in the history of Northwestern women's basketball. Nia Clouden from Michigan State was next to go, 12th overall in the first rounder. What's her pro career going to look like, you think?
Well, Nia Clouden has the advantage of she can create her own shot. And anybody who wants to play a pro, if you're a young woman listening right now, make sure that you can create your own shot, because that's exactly what you have to do in order to get the ball off against pros in the WNBA. Clouden's going to be interesting because at 5'9", she has good size, but not necessarily great size. The knock against her from some GMs is that she might not necessarily have the physicality to be a two-way player in the WNBA. But that being said, I think she has a really good chance of making a roster spot with Connecticut simply because she's such a crafty scorer and she can score at 3 levels. I've been impressed watching Clouden throughout her career at Michigan State because she started out mostly as a slasher who was really strong finishing on the left side. But as her career has gone on, she's really developed a nice 3-point shot. Clouden shot 40% from 3 this season, so she's dedicated to improving her game, especially offensively. And any time that you can knock down threes, there's a place for you in a roster.
Right. Yeah, an all-around player, does a lot of little stuff, leader on the team, the go-to. You need a clutch shot from Michigan State last year. Nia Clouden was where you turned to. You needed anything. If you're a Michigan Wolverine, you turned to Naz Hillman. She goes early in the second round. What were your thoughts on that?
You know, I think a lot of people were surprised by this. There was a notion in the WNBA headed into this that Hillman's size would really hurt her when it came to her position as a post player. At 6'2", she's technically undersized. However, Naz Hillman has one of the best motors in all of basketball when it comes to rebounding the ball. And that ability alone, I think, helps her get onto a WNBA roster. And I love this pick for her. And also, Hillman had a fabulous attitude. Afterward, she was asked, you know, were you upset that you were picked in the second round?
Some people thought she could have been even first half maybe of the
Absolutely, and she said, you know what, no, I think that takes away from people who weren't even picked at all. So I'm just so happy to have the opportunity to play. Hillman is so humble. She's one of my favorite players in all the Big Ten.
Such a leader, too.
She
like,
is.
Her brain is...
And she's a great player, and I really think she's the type of player that can improve in the WNBA and find herself on a roster. Now, the one area where she's going to have to improve with her size is becoming more of a perimeter player, because in the WNBA, there aren't as many traditional back-to-the-back post players as you maybe would see in the Big Ten.
Right.
So Hillman has to be able to develop that mid-range jumper to a three-pointer and also take the ball off the dribble. And those are skills I think that she could continue to grow and possess, but her rebounding ability is going to be why she makes the WNBA roster.
I think if I remember this correctly, at the end of the broadcast, they were talking who's going to pop among these players. I think Holly Rowe was like, I'll raise my hand for Naz Hillman. I think she's going to be great.
Well, Renee Montgomery, one of the owners of the Atlanta Dream, said she felt Naz Hillman was a steal. They couldn't believe she was still available whenever that time came.
Highest draft pick in Michigan women's basketball history. Those were some of the big names. I asked you yesterday, were there any other names that could go? I think one of the names you threw out there was Allie Patberg, and sure enough, she not only gets drafted, but stays in state.
I think it's pretty awesome, isn't it, for Patberg to be able to have a great career at Indiana, then to get drafted by the Fever. And look, the Indiana Fever are completely rebuilding right now. They have a lot of young talent. They have a new GM that's taken over in the legendary Lynn Dunn. Marianne Stanley is that head coach. So they drafted a lot of young talent. And I think there's a really good chance for a player like an Allie Patberg to potentially make a roster spot, because Patberg's really smart. And in order to play at this level, you have to have a high basketball IQ. And I think that it just depends on how training camp goes, but there's always going to be a good shot for you to make a roster if you can play the game with your brain.
I was just going to say, she's another player who's got it going. You know, the smarts up there.
The old noggin.
The old noggin should be working for her. She's the first Hoosier drafted in 11 years. Now, since 2011 was the last time they had someone. So the big thing was the draft, but there has been news since we've had a chance to have a long in-person chat with you. And well, before we get to that, I should say I forgot to mention other players that didn't get drafted. We talked about a Katie Benson. We talked about a Chloe Bibby. If you're not drafted, you can still make it to a camp. Who do you have an eye on in that area?
Well, Alexa Golbe from Indiana is going to go to Connecticut Suns camp, which is an awesome opportunity for her. I mean, look, any of these players still have an opportunity to go to camp, which is what makes the WNBA so unique, is that even though you don't get drafted, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're never going to play in the WNBA. It just means you have to go to camp and prove yourself.
Right. All right, now I was mentioning, though, there was other news to get to. When we mentioned Allie Patberg coming from Indiana, the Hoosiers have had a great run. Terry Morin has built an excellent program, but they are losing some talent. They're also bringing in some talent.
I was going to say, hold the phone.
They have brought in 3 transfers that are all fascinating, including a star in the Big Ten last year, Sarah Scalia from Minnesota.
Sarah Scalia from Minnesota announced that she would be in the portal a couple weeks ago, and she just announced that she has committed to Indiana. That's a massive get for the Hoosiers. Now, I thought that Chloe Moore-McNeil from Indiana had a nice three-point shot coming off the bench and provided a big spark for the Hoosiers. But to add a player like Sarah Scalia, who's one of the best three-point shooters in the Big Ten, I mean, when you guard Indiana, you got to get out there fast to the three-point line to make sure she does not make you pay. So it really gives an extra dynamic, especially with Grace Berger, to this offense for the Hoosiers.
They're going to be fun.
They're going to be fun. Not to mention, they added, if I can just cut you off and keep talking.
Yeah, that's a little rude.
It's just kind of what we're going to do right here. Indiana was also able to add Oregon forward Sydney Parrish.
Right.
Parrish is from Indiana, and she was a massive recruit in her class. I'll never forget. Everyone
Indiana Miss Basketball, right?
She was, and she's from the Fishers area. And I remember thinking that she was going to want to stay home, and she ended up going to Oregon. Well, I guess I was eventually right, because she is coming back home to play for the Hoosiers. And I think that's another really great player that Terry Morin's able to add, who's 6'2", has size, she can shoot the three, she can score off the dribble. And again, to replace a player with size like an Alexa Golbe, who's going to be missing now, I think that's a great addition. And the Hoosiers also add Alyssa Geary from Providence, who's a 6'4" player, nice post, just great size, and it's going to be a nice compliment to Mackenzie Holmes.
And if you're thinking Oregon transfer to the Big Ten, have we seen that recently?
Like, kind of like, let's look here.
Taylor Mikesell did okay. Yeah.
And she did just fine.
She did just
fine.
fine.
The Nets in the Big Ten work maybe better than the Nets in the Pac-12.
That's got to be what
it
it
must
is,
be it.
right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, you think Scarlet is a real big deal. That's almost 18 points a game, a second-team All-Big Ten player. Indiana has made the Sweet 16 in back-to-back years. There's no reason to think they don't have a legit shot at doing that again this upcoming year.
Not to mention, again, Grace Berger returns, and Mackenzie Holmes is going to have a long time to get healthy before November. Whew,
yeah,
watch out.
They are going to be good. We had a brief chance to talk to you about the opposite side of the transfer portal, which is what's happening at Maryland. Ashley Owusu out. Reese is out now, too. Where do we go? I mean, I don't think any Maryland fan is worried because Brenda Frese is Brenda Frese. She's also been great at attacking the transfer portal. But where do you think they go right now?
Well, Brenda Frese is a magician, first of all, and one of the best coaches in college basketball. You know, it's a really interesting landscape we're dealing with in college basketball. There are more than 1,000 players in the women's basketball transfer portal right now. And that's for a variety of reasons. But also, you know, NIL has something to do with it because now you have teams that are saying you can come here and we can guarantee you this much money in NIL deals. So it's become a really interesting landscape in college basketball, and teams are having to relearn how to recruit this generation. So I still think that Brenda Frese is going to have an opportunity to get a lot of talent in the transfer portal if that's the way she chooses to go. I know they just got a great 2022 commit coming to campus next year.
Just going to say, their recruiting's looking good, too.
Oh, yeah. Cheyenne Sellers is still going to be back. Diamond Miller is getting surgery right now, so hopefully we send good vibes and thoughts to her during that time in her recovery. So still a lot of good things happening in College Park, but right now across college basketball, the transfer portal it's really interesting, and it's really changing the landscape, and I think teams and coaches are learning how to adjust as this has become kind of a new thing.
Yeah. Now, I know you only agreed to do one segment.
I did.
With us.
Can I go now?
No. I'd like to hold you for later on in the show. In honor of the WNBA draft and such a good year for the league, we're going to have you rank the best WNBA players to come from the Big Ten all time.
That's exciting stuff.
You got like 40 minutes to get
All right,
ready,
I'll go
okay?
figure out what I'm going to say.
There's no watch on that wrist, by the way. All right, so more from Megan a little bit later on in the show. We'll to the world of baseball. It's a two-team race right now at the top of the league, Rutgers and Illinois. Rutgers ranked by a major outlet for the first time since 2010. Illinois only 500 overall, but playing great in conference ball. Still plenty of games left to be played for sure. I mentioned Rutgers being up there at the very top. That's thanks in part to their first 10-game winning streak since 2004, which brings us to our big interview, their head coach, Steve Owens. Steve, I know you don't like to refer to it as the season, but the first start of the season, the half of the season, how do you explain this great start to the year?
Well, we have a club that's worked pretty hard and quite a few returners from last year's club that kind of turned the corner and did some good stuff. So, we got off to a good start. Our players, showed up to work every day and they've performed pretty well at, both at pitching and hitting and defense. So it's been pretty complete effort so far. And, hopefully they can keep going and stay locked in, going forward here into the second half.
We mentioned it doesn't come out of nowhere. Last year, you guys had your best finish since joining the league. Give me an example of one or two kernels that you saw last year that you sort of could see coming down the line.
Well, we were competitive. We were very competitive daily. Anyone will tell you playing 44 conference games in a Power 5 conference was very difficult. We weren't built, but to maybe have the depth needed to stay competitive every single day for the whole year. But in the middle of the year, we were in a good spot. We had won I think 5 nationally ranked road games in a row, and that allowed us to have a little confidence. And then we kind of fizzled a little bit down the stretch, but I think being able to go on the road, winning a lot of games on the road last year, I think we led the conference in road wins, and being able to beat some of the teams at the top. We did better against the teams at the top than we did against the teams that finished below us. So I think those were good indications that we had some talent, and we had some kids that were pretty tough and could go to the next level.
You mentioned being competitive daily. How do you create a culture in your program where they can be competitive daily?
Well, we talk about being unselfish and playing hard, doing what it takes every day to keep getting better, and skill-wise, they've worked very hard. Our coaching staff and support staff have worked very hard, and the kids have bought into coming to work every day, and it's really simple. You go to work every day, you practice hard, and the games become just an extension of that. And so mentally they've become tougher. Again, that's part of the culture that you want. You want kids that are able to show up every day when they don't feel good, or if they've traveled and they don't make excuses. And I think we have a lot of tough kids in our program. We've been able to help them develop by them buying in, and then us just being around them for a little bit. It was tough for all coaches, in all sports during COVID to really get into any normalcy. But this feels like a normal year, and playing in the middle of the week and stuff is important. So you don't start up, you play on the weekends as a position player, and then you don't get another live at bat until Friday, and you're facing, a Friday starter that's a stud. That's kind of tough, getting some at bats in the middle of the week, and playing some defense in the middle of the week in a game setting, I think is important for everyone in this game of baseball to get into good routines.
Let me ask you about some of your specific players. When did you first know, hey, this Manhattan transfer, Nick Samillo kid, he's going to be pretty good for us?
Yeah, we got him really late. We tried to contact him earlier in the summer when guys were out playing, and he was waiting to get maybe potentially drafted or signed. And so it all happened really quick and late. And he showed up, and kids, we said, hey, you're going to catch, and you're going to catch a lot. And he's just gone to work. He's fit in great with our coaches and our players. He's living with the right guys that love baseball. They practice all the time, and he's gotten bigger and stronger. We didn't, we did what good coaches do. You don't change somebody has a certain way to swing, and so he's just been great every day. I think in the fall he hit a home run every weekend that we were able to inter-squad, and then in the wintertime, when we're doing individuals and inter-squadding, he hit a home run every weekend, and then he pretty much hits a home run every weekend. So the kid's just been great. Love being around him. Excited for him and happy that he's here, and happy for him to continue to be a part of success. The kid wants to win, so really happy that he's here.
You mentioned good coach doesn't change his interesting swing. How do you describe his swing?
I mean, it's a little awkward. Like you watch him in BP, and you wouldn't think that he's Ken Griffey with a beautiful swing, but he gets accelerated swings at strikes. He can hit fastballs, breaking balls, changeups. He gets in good counts all the time. For a kid with as much power as he has, he just hits the ball hard, a lot. Gets a lot of hits. Has bat control and power, and again, it's not a thing of beauty, but it's really effective, and he's a very good hitter.
How daunting was it going into this past offseason, knowing you had to replace your three main starters?
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do, with the shutdown and not being able to get out, the dead periods, and then just the craziness of the last couple of years. We have a lot of recruiting to do, and everybody, it's been difficult to evaluate, kind of recruiting 2 or 3 classes at a time, trying to fix each year, So there's a lot of obstacles. But we're excited. We're excited about the kids we have, and the potential of some of the kids we have coming forward. And again, it's been a lot of fun.
Let me ask about you specifically. You were drafted by the Cubs. What was that chunk of your life like?
Shorter than I would have liked, but still an important life experience. I was a Division III player, played a couple sports, and got an opportunity to play, and I wasn't good enough, but I learned a lot about the game. I was around, some really important people that taught me a lot, and I think it was a great life experience for me. I didn't, even when I got done, playing, which was only a couple years, I didn't anticipate, going into coaching for my whole life. It just happened that way. So, but it was great. I've always valued professional baseball. I've had a lot of players go on and play professional baseball. I love that. I love being able to help them, develop and watch them and be part of their lives, not only while they're here, but also if they get a chance to go out and play professional baseball. So any good college program, you recruit players and you hope that, you can get them to the next level. And anybody that's, that should be a high scholarship kid should have that goal and aspiration of playing at the next level.
When you did play, give me someone on your team or that you played against. That's pretty cool to say.
I did play against Ken Griffey Jr. in spring training. So I threw him out on a bunt, and that's about the highlight of maybe my defensive career as an infielder in the Cubs organization.
Man, that's a dinner time story for the rest of your life in my book.
Yeah, I've told that one a couple times.
All right, back to your players. What do people not know about Danny DiGiorgio that they should?
Just how good he is. Coach Garza has worked with him in the infield this year. He's an older player. He's had kind of a weird career because he didn't play right away when he came to Rutgers as an engineering student. And then the coaching staff got him to play the next year, and he was like, maybe on the all Big Ten freshman team. And then he got hurt. And then, we had him my first year here, and it was like, whoa, that kid's 6'5" or 6'6". He runs a 6'5", 60. He's got a good arm. It's really amazing, all the skills that he has to play shortstop that big and be that good at everything. But he's continued to develop. Very bright kid, tough kid. We've been pushing him to take over the team and be a leader. And I think that's naturally evolved, which is the best way leadership can evolve, is naturally. And really proud of him, what he's been able to do this year. He showed up to play every day. He's been great on Sundays. And I hope he gets a chance. I think he's an excellent baseball player that could really surprise somebody if he gets a chance to play professionally. But right now, we just want him to keep enjoying his last year of college baseball and doing what he's doing.
Last one for you here, Steve. Right now, you guys lead the Big Ten in pitching and in hitting and in fielding. Where's your heart as a baseball man? What gives you the most pride?
Well, hitting is what gives me the most pride because it's fun. But all three are equally important, and you're no good if you can't do one of them. But I'm the most proud this year of the fact that we identified and talked about our team defense as being something that is really important to take your team to another level. And our players bought into it. And they've been working really hard with consistent routines and sticking with it, the basics, the fundamentals, and the communication. And we moved guys around a lot too. So there's been a lot of different things. But they now see the value, of taking care of the baseball and not giving extra outs. And so, if you play really good defense, you can take away some outs, make the game shorter. You can win games without getting as many hits. So I guess they're all equally important. I love watching hitters hit more than I like anything. But the improvement in our program in the defense has probably helped us the most this year.
Steve Owens, the longtime thorn in the side of Ken Griffey Jr. Thank you for your time. Congratulations on this great start to the season, man.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mike.
The recent victory over Rutgers for Maryland marks 19 consecutive wins. 19 consecutive seasons that they've reached the 10-win mark. They are rolling. That's the best streak in the country. Be the best is their motto, and yeah, it is really working that way. And their head coach, John Tillman, good enough to join us now to talk about the Terps. And John, that big matchup you just had, number 1 versus number 3, those types of matchups are pretty special. What was that atmosphere and everything like?
Yeah, it was great to be back in Maryland Stadium. I think somebody mentioned it had been like 42 days since we had played in there, and it's a special place for us to get back to and to be there on a Sunday night with a great crowd and a lot of alums. Our 217 championship team being back. It was a really special night against a heck of a team. We have so much respect for Rutgers. Again, just a great opportunity to kind of test where we are, but also, the types of games you come to Maryland to play, play against the best and obviously, prepare all week and let it rip come the weekend.
And you said you have respect for Rutgers with good cause. They're not a pretty good team. They're a very good team. So how do you explain you guys beating them by that margin?
I think games, sometimes take on a life of their own. I mean, if you watched, their first 2 games in the conference at home, I think teams play, sometimes better at home. And I know we certainly feel more comfortable. We love to play every game in Maryland Stadium. And if you look at Rutgers, I think Rutgers is another team. They're excellent at home. So I just feel like we got off to a really good start. Luke won some faceoffs, and we were able to kind of hit some shots early. And again, I think it was just so exciting to be back in there. The guys came out flying, but there have been games where we haven't done that. So again, I think maybe just being back home, the excitement, and then just the guys, capitalizing and being super efficient and executing at a high level.
Let me talk about some of your guys specifically. What makes Keegan Kahn special?
A guy that has high IQ, very skilled. He's two-handed. He makes excellent decisions. Just a really crafty player. Great anticipation. Can see things happen before they happen. He's shooting at a very high level now. I think his shooting percentage is super high. I think we see what we've seen when we played against him as a guy that is very effective. He's very smart. It makes guys around him better. He can play with either hand, and you just don't find that a lot in college lacrosse, a guy that's that good with both hands.
What has McNaney been working on in goal the most recently?
Logan is a guy, we work on a lot with him each week. What's great with him is he's never satisfied. So on a typical week, we'll do technique, just fundamentals, stopping the ball from different locations. We'll evaluate the game and kind of look and see how he was and, whether it was as guys shot, as the ball moves, how he is in the cage, is he positioned the right way. We'll look at outletting, decisions in the clearing game. Which he's doing a very good job of, but we kind of start over, after the last game. So it'll be Tuesday of this week will be our first practice after the Sunday night game, and we'll start from scratch. We'll kind of look at what we did, and then we'll start getting back to basics and a lot of fundamentals. I think Logan really buys into that. He's got some natural ability, but he's never above doing any type of work to try to make him better, and a lot of it is the basics.
John, I've done my best. I've gone as long as I can without asking you about Logan Wisnauskas. He broke the career points record. Put into perspective what kind of accomplishment that is for me.
Well, I think it speaks to a couple things. Consistency and a guy that's done it over a long period of time and done it well. You have to be a guy that gets on the field early to ever have any type of record like that. You need to be a guy that's ready to go. And Logan was certainly that way when he came to us. And sometimes it's timing. You lose a Matt Rambo, and that's a pretty significant loss. But I think Logan helped us. I think the other thing Logan would tell you is that there's a lot of guys, a lot of teammates that have helped him, guys that have either thrown him the ball or, he's just assist to, and a lot of guys in practice that have challenged him to get better and be better. So he's not a guy that seeks attention. He doesn't really do much on social media. He just loves lacrosse. He loves playing for Maryland. He loves his teammates. And it's refreshing in a world where a lot of times guys are seeking out the attention. Logan is just not that guy at all, and I just think he's a great role model for young people.
And yet he comes into your program to grab the spotlight right after you lose Jared Bernhard. How do you explain that recruiting success that you've been able to have?
Well, I think he and Jared were a great combo for us. I think they played off each other very, very well. And, this is a place where, it's a little different. Our state, the history of the state, lacrosse is part of it. You drive down even my street, there's goals in front of a lot of yards, or they're in a lot of backyards. Most of the high schools in the state have lacrosse, so it's very unique in our sport that lacrosse is so important here. It's part of the fabric of our state, and it's our state sport. So to be in an area where lacrosse means so much to so many people locally, that's why you see such big crowds. That's why you see the fans and you see guys signing autographs. It means a lot. It means a lot to our alums and our school, and it's something we take a lot of pride in. We never want to let anybody down, so we feel like we need to work really hard to make sure we represent, our school and our state and our alums the right way.
Okay, so let me hear your pitch. Recruit me. Let's assume I'm a great high school player. Why am I coming to play for you, John?
Well, you're certainly not just playing for me. You got a world-class university here. You have an alumni group that is going to support you throughout your 4 years, but also help you with job opportunities after you graduate. You're going to have lifelong friends that, when they came here, part of the sell is, what we took from Bud Beardmore, who was the coach here in the 70s, which is be the best, and it's be the best version of yourself. Be the best person, student, and player you can be, and that in that order. So we're not just trying to get guys to win games. We're trying to get them ready for, a very challenging world out there. And we don't want them just to get a job. We want them to be super successful with whatever they decide to do. But we also want to make sure they get the support they need to succeed academically in case they want to pursue a second degree. You've got obviously a university that everybody worldwide knows. You're in a location near two major metropolitan areas with so much culture and so many things to do. And lacrosse just means so much here. It's just not another sport. And you see that with how many games are on TV. You see that with, obviously the support that we get here. And year in, year out, you're going to play against the best teams. And we want guys that want to work hard, want to give up themselves so that the team can win. So, it's not necessarily a place that's ideal for everybody. If it's somebody that is really just focused on their own personal gains and just kind of want their points, we're just not the right place. For us, it's always about the team. It's always about trying to do what we can to represent, again, our state, our fans, and our school well. And it's about the guys next to you. And that's what's made this team successful so far. There are so many guys that are giving of themselves on a daily basis. Guys in practice that you don't see, guys like the Michael Roaches of the world that really challenge, or Luke Wehrman, who's having a really good year. You have guys like Eric Spanos and Ryan Siracusa that are challenging our defense every day. You got guys like Kyle Long and Anthony DeMeo that are really, really important players on our team and some of the best guys out there. Yet they're doing everything they can to incorporate the other guys to make sure they're successful. They're just such selfless guys that, it's great to be part of a team like that. It's not just winning games. It's going to be friends that you'll have for the rest of your life. And those are great guys to spend the time away from practice together. So you're going to have an amazing experience and lifelong friends and part of something bigger than yourself, which is terrific.
Well, I'm signing. That was a lot there. I get how it works, John. Thanks for the pitch. Thanks for your time, too. Only a couple weeks left in the regular season, so enjoy it, and good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Spring college football not done yet, not even close. Up next, OSU and MSU this weekend. Starts off noon Eastern, 11 Central, Ohio State from Columbus. Then at 2 Eastern, 1 Central, we take it East Lansing for their matchup. All right here on the Big Ten Network, and we're going to focus on that latter one, the late one, the green and white one. Chris Solaria, the Detroit Free Press, is good enough to give us some of his time right now. Chris, you personally, what are you most interested in seeing from this MSU spring game?
Well, I think the thing I'm most interested in seeing is probably the thing that's not going to be there in terms of the offensive line. I mean, that's going to be Michigan State's, there's obviously the replacing of Kenneth Walker, which I think you're going to get a little glimpse of that. but they still got another running back in Jarek Broussard coming from Colorado during the offseason. So you'll get to see some of the other guys like Elijah Collins and Jalen Berger, the Wisconsin transfer. But I think the offensive line is the thing that everyone's kind of most interested in, because they lose about 5 or 6 veteran guys from last year's team that helped really create more of a run game for Walker and for the offense that had really struggled. Now they're limited with injuries. This is the reason why they're going from instead of a traditional spring game to more of a practice and with some extended live periods, because the numbers are down up front. So, but we're going to get a chance to see some young guys like Gino Vandemark and Brandon Baldwin and some of the other young players that they've brought in, like Kevin Wigington, over the last few years, and getting their chance to replace those guys that have departed.
So is that safe to say that O-line is the biggest concern for MSU right now, or is it something else?
I think that's probably safe to say. I think from a running back standpoint, you're not going to probably be able to singularly replace what Kenneth Walker did. I think that's something that maybe even last year they weren't necessarily sure going into the season that they would get a single back like that. And Walker really proved to be an every down back with tons of burst, tons of wiggle, and tons of vision. That's why they've got a lot of backs in that backfield. So they've got enough guys there that you can kind of look and see. But you're replacing a lot of experience in guys like Matt Allen and Luke Campbell and Kevin Jarvis and, all the guys that had been on that offensive line all the way back to, 2017, 2018. It feels like we've heard those names for years. This is, to me, the biggest thing that this offense and really the team needs to replace. And I think on the defensive side, the secondary is obviously, particularly cornerback, an area of emphasis after they struggled against the pass a year ago. But I think from an overarching standpoint, it's the offensive line that's going to be the biggest question mark going into fall.
And one more on the running back position, because what they got from Kenneth Walker was so amazing last year. Do you think their position now is we're going to be a running back by committee with Berger, Broussard, Davion Prim, whomever? Or is it that's just where we are now? We hope to find a lead back by the time late August gets here.
I think that's an absolutely fair assessment. I think they're hoping that the competition shakes out to one of those guys, whether it be Broussard coming in from Colorado. He had been the Pac-12 Player of the Year in 2020 on the offensive side. Whether it be Berger, who showed as a freshman at Wisconsin, whether it be Elijah Collins, who nearly had 1,000 yards as a redshirt freshman. I know they're really high on redshirt freshman Davion Prim as well. I think that's where they're at right now. I think that, replacing a guy like Kenneth Walker, the Doak Walker Award winner, a National Player of the Year in the Walter Camp Award. That's a generational kind of thing that really was striking gold in the transfer portal last year. I don't think you can expect that every year, but I do think that the ideal plan is to have a single back and then sprinkle in the other guys. But how long it takes to get to that remains to be seen.
No questions at quarterback. Peyton Thorne blossomed nicely last year. What kind of a battle is there for the number 2 spot?
That's going to be interesting to watch, because they've got 3 guys right now behind Thorne who have not taken a snap in college. And the guy that everyone has really talked up for the last year or so since he was a recruit was Caton Hauser, who enrolled early. Kid from California, big arm, a lot of talent there, 4-star kid that could be the future at that position. But he's got competition with Noah Kim, who was a redshirt freshman last fall and usually was the number 3 quarterback, and then Hamp Fay. A couple times when Anthony Russo, the graduate transfer, was out, he slid into the number 3 spot, and Kim moved up to the number 2 spot. But they didn't really need to take a snap because Peyton Thorne escaped injury last year, which, when you think about that, that's almost as impressive as Kenneth Walker's season, right? That you get a quarterback in the Big Ten that takes almost every snap. But I think right now that's going to be another one of those competitions I asked Mel Tucker about that's probably going to go into the fall camp with those guys.
So let's look at Michigan State. You take a step back. A couple years ago, they win 2 games. Then last year, they surprised everybody and win 11 games. Oh, by the way, they somehow got a very good recruiting class before they even finished that 11-win season. So I'm curious how the fan base is feeling about Mel Tucker now versus, say, when he was hired after only 1 year of an average record as a head coach at Colorado.
I do think that there was energy and excitement after Tucker was hired. I think that he said a lot of the right things, hit a lot of the right beats, and you know, obviously things shut down at that point in his first year with the pandemic, and then going through that summer. And then when you come out of the fall and you win 2 games out of the 7 you play, I don't necessarily know if fans were turned off at all by that, because I think one thing that he got was an understanding from the fan base of the uniqueness of his situation, taking over in February late when Mark D'Antonio retired, really not having his own recruits and really not having the ability to explore the transfer portal when everything was shut down. I think a lot of fans, though, went into last year expecting, okay, a successful season will be getting to a bowl game and competing and really showing out against the teams you face. They go 11-2, and they make the Peach Bowl. They get the New Year's Six Bowl. Fans were ecstatic, and I think you saw in the offseason with his big contract, I think a lot of fans understand and really are buying into the fact that Tucker believes that big things can be done in East Lansing. And the fact that he was able to show it really in his first full season didn't do anything to dissuade that. I think the energy level at Michigan State right now from the fan base is as high as it's been, which is amazing thinking about where it was in 2013, 14, and 15 under Mark D'Antonio.
Right. Yeah, that's indeed an impressive climb and a quick one, too. Chris Solari, great insight, great perspective. Thanks for the time, man.
You got it, Mike. Take care.
WNBA draft was last night. Here's a look at the highest any Big Ten player has been taken. Nobody higher than Janelle McCarville from Minnesota. She went first overall. Few have gone second. Mitchell, Zowie B, and Davenport, and a whole bunch have gone in the top 5 in the history of the WNBA. So as we said earlier, we sent Megan away. She had 40 minutes to get ready, give us her top 5 greatest WNBA players from the Big Ten all time. We're going to start at 5, bring the countdown
We are,
down.
but before we go with the countdown, asterisk, Rutgers and Maryland are not included in this because they were not in the Big Ten until as of 2015.
But you could have taken them the last 6, 7 years.
I could have, but we're staying all time. We're kind of going more players that are seasoned veterans in the WNBA. Just asterisk for you. Okay. I'm not leaving out Maryland and Rutgers.
Okay, number 5. Do you remember who it was? Do you want me to give you the hint? Because I have it written down.
It was Penn State's Tanisha Wright.
There you go.
Am I correct? Is that what I picked at number 5? Well, that's exactly who I'm going with. Tanisha Wright had a fantastic WNBA career, a fabulous defensive player. She made multiple WNBA defensive teams. And now she's the current head coach of the Atlanta Dream. Mm-hmm. She's going to be coaching Michigan forward Naz Hillman in a couple weeks at camp.
How about that? 14 years as a pro, won a title, did some great stuff. 3-time Big Ten. She's a Veronica Burton. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year.
There's a place for you in the league if you can play defense. I couldn't play defense.
At number 4, who you got?
At number 4, I had Janelle McCarville, the former Minnesota standout, who had a fantastic pro career. She won multiple WNBA championships. Just a really great, solid forward who had a nice, long career, was on that Final Four team with Minnesota as well, played a lot with Lindsay Whalen, and ultimately she's got to make your top 5 in the WNBA players when it comes to Big Ten, former Big Ten players.
When she was in college, she set the NCAA tournament record for rebounds.
And she was a number 1 overall pick, as we just showed you.
That's right.
Right before the segment started.
Your number 3 Big Ten WNBA player is?
Former Iowa great Tangela Smith, the current Northwestern assistant coach. But Tangela Smith had 16 years in the WNBA, a long career. She averaged nearly 11 points, 5 rebounds. She won 2 WNBA championships. She actually led the Mercury in 3-point shooting percentage one year, and she's 6'3". So credit her and what she was able to do in the WNBA. But have a really long career, 16 years. That's like half as long as I've been alive. Not even, actually. Not even, actually.
Former Big Ten Player of the Year as well. She's still got a shot in practice. Can she heave one up?
I'm pretty sure nobody's guarding Tangela Smith. Nobody wants to guard her. You're smart. Put your money on Tangela Smith, not anybody else.
You had to pick the number 2 player. Who'd you go with?
Tough. I went with Katie Smith from Ohio State. She was a fantastic historic player for the Buckeyes and then in the WNBA as well. Has won multiple gold medals with Team USA. Was the finals MVP in 2008, a 2-time WNBA champion, and just overall a player that really embodies, the WNBA and what it means in its core, and had a fantastic long career again, and somebody who's going to be one of the all-time greats at Ohio State as well.
Right. When she retired after 15 years, she was the all-time leading scorer in that league's history.
And she just was promoted to associate head coach for the Minnesota Lynx.
That's right. That's a heck of a career. She's a Hall of Famer. She's got 3 Olympic gold medals. How is she not number one?
I mean, can you imagine like the trophy case that must be in her house? Because I tell you, who probably has the biggest trophy case of them all, and that is current Minnesota head coach Lindsay Whalen, who gets to be number 1, 4-time WNBA champion. She's won multiple gold medals. She still leads the Minnesota Lynx in all-time assists. She leads the WNBA in most games won. Not to mention just overall, what a baller. She was a fantastic player, great point guard during her time in Minnesota for Team USA, all over the WNBA. Her impact will be felt for years to come with what she was able to accomplish during her career.
She has that thing when you talk to her, you know this as well, from calling games, from doing sidelines, that competitive drive that she has, you can see it in the back of her eyes at all times.
She thinks the game at such a high level, and I think there are very few players out there who have ever played the game that can see the way Lindsay Whalen sees when it comes to basketball IQ.
Yeah, she had this great career, and I think she would respect your basketball IQ because you picked her as number 1.
She would respect that, and she likes my shoes when I wore my snake boots
right.
during her game. So.
Why didn't you wear those now, by the way?
Because Lindsay Whalen wasn't going to be here. Why would I wear them?
That makes perfect sense.